Alrighty then, Koopa Moogles, the Schwantz 27 here, and we got another race for you on Final Fantasy VI. Worlds Collide. We have got a four-way race here between Turdsman, Jex Varrock, Drinks Glue, and Nobody War. What exactly are we going to be racing tonight? Well, we have a special throwback treat for you all. We are going to be doing a Coliseum 2 flag set. That's right, we're throwing it back to the days where we threw down with 1v1. And we picked a random Coliseum flag set. And it happened to be, as you can kind of, well, I guess you can't really see because I'm still messing around with the cropping and things like that because we had a late challenger approaching. Nobody War here in our bottom right with the orange. So yeah, basically we are doing Umaro's flag set from the Coliseum 2, as you could see by the Umaros there as your character. Everybody starts off with Umaro. And what does the Coliseum 2 flag set mean? Well, there is a requirement of getting 6 characters and 9 espers in order to unlock Kefka. You do get a Kefka Tower skip at 12 bosses, as you can see on some of our runners' screens here, so that's important to note. We will be keeping track of the bosses tonight as well. The other interesting things with Umaro's flag set, we are going to get a plus 10 strength just to start off with. So that applies to all of our characters. And we'll also get a interesting set of character stats. We're going to get 100 to 125% of vanilla. So in addition to that plus 10 strength, we are going to have some even buffer characters from there on out. 7 of our characters will be without secondary commands, and 7 of them will have random unique commands. There is a 100% bonus chance on espers. No free espers or items with this particular flag set as well. But the interesting wrinkle in our flag set is the Coliseum will grant all characters auto berserk plus a bonus to the strength of an additional 30 strength points. So that is plus 40 total if we decide to go and win a fight at the Coliseum. So very high risk, very high reward here, as we will need either a ribbon or a peace ring in order to not have our characters be berserked the entire time. We do start off with Umaro, so we already know that we can scale the snowy cliffs of Narsh in order to get both the Tritok flag set and the, not the Tritok flag set, the Tritok check and Umaro's cave. So this is Umaro's flag set. In case you are interested, you could head on over to the Coliseum 2 rules. Did I do it correctly? There we go. So that's where the rules and information is. You could ignore the bracket, obviously, because the tournament is over. As we are going to look to get started here in just a moment. This is Umaro's flag set, as I just mentioned, so that'll be interesting for our runners to take on here. And they're just going to get started in just a moment here, so we'll see if they're rocking and ready to go. So this is Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, the open world Final Fantasy VI randomizer. As we do see the plus 10 Vigor objective, we do get Cyan and Strago with our Umaro. And with Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, we are going to be limited to the areas of the game by the characters that we have. And since we have Cyan and Strago to start off with, looks like Strago has Dance. I saw a couple of the dances, but didn't see anything really jump out at me. All of the dances are shuffled, and as I mentioned, there is a 50-50 chance whether or not your character has a secondary command in this particular set of options here. We see most of our runners heading to Narsh, World of Balance Narsh, because that way you can access most of the treasure. Nobody War deciding to hop on over to World of Ruin Albrook instead. There are also some treasure chests here, as well as a full arrangement of shops. One note with Cyan, if we do complete the dream set of objectives or set of checks, we do unlock 3 Suratech. So not the full 8, only 3. And if we don't have a person with sword tech in the party, when we get them, they will just unlock the first 3 sword techs. So it's only really useful to do extremely early in the game. So it'll be interesting to see what our runners do. We have, in addition to Cyan's Dream, we have Mount Zozo and the Doma Siege open in case of a... that's for the Cyan checks. And then for Strago's checks, we do have Ebbett's Rock, in addition to the Burning House, which is an interesting play early on in the seed because there are a lot of forced encounters for you to gain levels there, but there is the risk of not being able to beat the boss at the end. Fanatic's Tower Peak from Nobody War, that is the 3rd and final Strago stop. That's always going to be progression. Unfortunately, that is a soldier at the bottom, so that means that is either a... well, I'm sorry, since it's guaranteed progression, that means that that is an Esper down there and not an item. We'll see if any of our runners pick up anything interesting here in the early sets of looting and shopping. That's what most of Worlds Collide is. For the first, I don't know, like 5 to 10 minutes of it, especially with the characters and abilities that we have here. Dance is one of those moves that, similar to Berserk, you can't control your character once you select it. It will select a random spell from the list of 4 that it has. It's obviously weighted towards certain spells, the ones that come first in the list versus last in the list. And I didn't quite see what Cyan had as his ability. Hopefully we will see it at some point during the battle sequence. We'll definitely see it. Bunch of warp stones there from Nobody War and some dried meat in case we find Gao later on. Skitch, rather, comments that it was GP Rain on Cyan, so thank you for the heads up in the chat. Always appreciate it. I am doing the work of tracking and restreaming and commentary tonight, so appreciate the extra eyes in the crowd. So GP Rain is actually somewhat decent as soon as you get off of level 3, because GP Rain does damage based on the amount of levels you have and whether or not you have the cash to back it up. Enhancers for sale would be nice for any magic users. Unfortunately, nobody could equip them for Nobody War, so he decides to hold off on a purchase there. GP Rain also divides evenly by the number of enemies that are there. Nice little sync at the top of the screen here between Turdsman and Jexvarok going into World of Balance South Figaro. We could loot both World of Balance South Figaro and World of Ruin South Figaro, and the chests on the outside town portion of South Figaro will be different between both towns. However, the chests in the basement you can only go do once, so that's what Nobody War and Drinks Glue are all heading down there to go do. And it'll be interesting to see what our runners decide to do first. JCMTG giving a little formula action in the chat. What's going on? How are we tonight? So yeah, Worlds Collide on Twitch, or Hi from the Past, or yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube. So let's see what the dances are here. Desert Aria with Elfire and Plasma a couple times. El Nino is a good AoE water damage. So Strago is going to probably be using that AoE water damage dance for mobs, and then perhaps the Elfire Plasma one if we run into a boss or character that is that's weak to either fire or thunder, because Plasma is a thunder-based magical ability there. Nobody War taking off the Moogle Charm here to do some grinding. I like this strategy. We do have Umaro who will just hit things, and we'll be able to absorb this Blizzard spell, because he does have the Snow Muffler on. And hopefully we've got enough firepower here from Strago in order to take down that Chimera. We do. Very nice. A lot of XP there. We do have a Hero Ring and Hyper Wrist for Umaro that Tornado Keith points out in the chat. Hero Ring will boost both your magical and physical damage by 25%, so that's a nice relic to have. Hyper Wrist is going to increase our already increased strength. Remember, this is Umaro's flag set, so we get plus 10 strength off of the rip, and if any of our runners dare decide to go to the Coliseum and win a Coliseum fight, then they're going to get plus 10, rather plus 30 more strength. However, they will lose their character to Auto Berserk for the rest of the seed. I didn't see any peace rings floating up. Rather, I didn't see any ribbons floating around, but I might have caught a peace ring in the inventory of one of our runners here. So maybe we found it along the way. Maybe we're looking for it in the relic shop. Important to keep in mind those relics that negate the Berserk status. Jesus the Frog says there was a peace ring. Thank you very much. So yeah, peace ring is one of those things you can use to negate the effect of Berserk. Peace ring is a drop actually from the Kefka at Narsh battle. So the bosses in Worlds Collide are shuffled amongst where you'll fight them. However, their drops are vanilla, so you could expect a peace ring from Kefka at Narsh, wherever that boss may be shuffled into the pool. Nobody War heading over to Miranda. There's a couple of chests here and a weapon shop and an armor shop. Man-Eater in that shop there, which is a halfway decent weapon for the final boss, and that's kind of about it. Does double damage to human targets. So think like Vargas or a lot of the ending of the game in the final battle. A lot of those targets are considered humanoid. Nobody War looks like they are going to be our first runner to head over to Thamasa here. There are 6 chests and a full assortment of shops. However, the question that is burning on my mind at least is, will they go through the burning house? You see what I did there? That was a nice little play on words. Dragoon boots in the relic shop there. So if we find a dragon horn later, that's something to come back to. Drinks Glue is going to check the Tizen Thief 26,000 for that Esper. So we'll see if they decide to sell a bunch of stuff to go purchase it now. Just as a reminder, no free progression flag is on. That doesn't really matter with the 3 characters we have, because they don't have any no free progression checks. But in case we do later, and that is the first Magicite of the seed on the board there. That is Drinks Glue with their first Magicite, Zone Seek. Hopefully can teach some better spells to Strago than having him rely on Dance. Alright, looks like Turdsman is going to take his crew over to Mount Zozo. This is the only quote-unquote free check. Well, it's actually not free. You have to pay $1,000 for the Rust Rid, but it's free in terms of you don't have to actually fight any battles in order to get the reward. There is an optional dragon. We'll see if Turdsman decides to take it. Bolt 3, Bolt 2, and Life 2 on that Esper. Really nice pickup there for Drinks Glue. He's going to be learning those spells somewhere along the way. Jex Varrock takes off the Moogle Charm in the desert here, and he's going to try and grind on this fight, getting some mileage out of his Strago with Dance. And it looks like Nobody War is not going to go through the Casa del Fuego first. He instead is going to head over to Ebbets Rock. So there is a boss at the end of Ebbets Rock, but he is also level 6. His enemies, consequently, are level 8 because they are characters plus Espers plus dragons times 2.5. So that's 9, actually. I can't math. You shouldn't math and stream at the same time. It looks like Turdsman just walked right past the dragon spot there. Not going to go after it as of yet. Might come back to it on the way out, because there is a shiny stone on the ground there that he's going to want to pick up first. And Jex Varrock, our first runner to see what's in the Coliseum. We'll see if there's anything decent in there. Ooh, a Ragnarok for an air anchor, and he's going to go for it. However, this fight is not going to be an easy one with the Madam. Madam can cast Pearl, which would probably send Umaro packing right away. First Esper there on the board for Turnsman. It is Unicorn with Fire 3 and Bolt 2. That's also a really nice Esper. Couple of nice shiny stones right away. And thankfully for Nobody War, this is an easy fight. It's the second iteration of Ultros here, Ultros 2. This is the Opera House Ultros. And Ultros is weak to fire, so Hopefully we'll see the Elf Fire spell come out here. One of the nice things about having Umaro in the Coliseum is that you know that he won't mess around and do any weird stuff. He's just going to smash. And there it is, the Auto Berserk objective plus and the plus 30 Vigor. So let's see if anybody can equip that Ragnarok. And it looks like both Umaro and Strago can. The Kieran Esper is the reward at the end of Ebbets Rock there for Nobody War. That's his first Esper on the board. And it's got Bio. Not as good as the other two Espers that we've seen thus far in the seed. Yeah, interesting call from Jex Varrock here to go for some Coliseum fights. We know we did find a peace ring somewhere, or at least the chat has led me to believe that. So chat is never wrong, right, guys? And it looks like Nobody War is going to dip into the Burning House here. Going to learn some spells on his characters. Unfortunately, didn't get one of the other two Espers where there were much more valuable spells on it. The problem with putting the Ragnarok on Umaro, as you see over here for Jex Varrock, is Umaro cannot get any critical hits with the Ragnarok or the Illumina because they use MP, and Umaro doesn't earn any MP. However, it is more powerful battle power wise than anything he's got at the moment, and his characters are at low enough levels where the taking of magic points for procs is not going to be a big deal. Nobody War finds Stray Cat in the Burning House as one of the flame encounters there. So if we get somebody with rage, watch out. This will probably be doing Stray Cat for the rest of the seed. Turdsman also wants that Ragnarok, and here you see what I had mentioned. Madam with the Pearl Cast, gonna knock the Yeti down. And just like Aaliyah, he's probably gonna dust himself off and try again. Drinks Glue here, heading into the Burning House as well. Also, let me know how the audio balance is. I'm looking at my levels and they look okay, but if the game audio is a little too loud, just let me know. Alright, so Jex Varrock is going to take that Coliseum win and head right over to the Doma Siege. Yeah, here's the only other bad thing about GP Rain is that it only attacks enemies on one side of the screen at a time. However, Strago's El Nino will attack everything. And since those are little vanilla balloon action, that should be pretty easy. We got triple Berserk over there for Jex Varrock. Taking some grind fights here at Doma Siege. Which is really interesting. So that's one way to level up your characters. The unfortunate thing is if they can't beat the boss, then we lose all of the leveling that we did before we hit up the boss. And hey, is this even randomized? It is leader here at Doma Siege, so this will be an easy fight for Jexy. So it looks like he's got a Tiger Fangs or some sort of claw, maybe the Dragon Claw that we picked up, and the Ragnarok to easily take care of leader there. And it is a time waste at the end of the Burning House. Narapa, thankfully, this isn't a difficult boss. So this looks like the best choice thus far here. Between Nobody War and Drinks Glue, our runners on the bottom of the screen going after it. Of course, I completely missed what Jex got for that reward. I will see it in a couple seconds on Turdsman's screen, so it's not a huge deal. Nicely done. That Wild Bear clearing out the condemned status. That's not something you see very often. Oh, unfortunately, doesn't get the insta-kill there on Narapa. But the boss is down anyway. Oh, that's right, I gotta start checking off bosses here too. And it is gonna be a character. I'm pretty sure that's how it is, right? This is Drinks Glue's first boss. And it is Shadow at the end of the Burning House. Little vanilla action here. Vanilla cutscene, anyway. Shadow with health. Not a great ability, but he is the 4th member on the team. You might as well bring him along. And with that, we do have the option of going to Gal Manor, which is a free check, so it will reward an item in this flag set. We do also have the Floating Continent, the 3-part check, and we have the Cave on the Veldt, which is probably the closest in proximity. But it looks like Nobody War is going to head over to Mount Zozo now, as Turdsman ends up taking down the leader. That's his first boss. And it's another Magicite there, so I'm going to add that to Jexferox's total as well, with Bismarck. Drinksglue going to get their Esper after this fight here. So the problem with using Dance against something like Narapa is Narapa does absorb and rather does nullify out a lot of magical spells, even though they are pretty much a pushover. So that is quite the unfortunate thing, and here comes Shadow for Drinksglue, and that is their second boss down. Alright, so Turdsman looks like they are going to go back for that Ragnarok here. The funny thing about the Coliseum is that you want to do it early so that you don't learn like all these dumb, useless spells. But you also don't want to make that decision right at the very start of the game about, hey, I'm going to be berserked for the entire game. Very nice. Ice 3 getting absorbed there from Umaro. Hopefully he'll be able to get through this fight and get that Ragnarok sword. Meanwhile, Jexy looks like they are going to the top of Narsh in the World of Ruin. So this is the Tritok and Umaro's cave play. Perhaps with a dragon in between. Oh, and Umaro dies yet again from that Pearl spell. Nobody War getting his second Esper at Mount Zozo, and it looks like they might be going back to take on the dragon here. Drinksglue just saying, fight me, bro. Going right at leader here. Jexferok also found a Rage Ring somewhere, so his Umaro is really leaning into this. Unfortunately, Cyan, I think, has a Dragon Claw equipped, which is Pearl Elemental, and he's fighting the White Dragon here. So this is a bit rough. The White Dragon's gonna get healed basically every third turn. Drinksglue with their third boss down, and that's another Magicite for them. Meanwhile, Dragon down for Jexferok, so that's his first. Dragons will drop a high tier item in addition to their vanilla reward, which is a Pearl Lance for the White Dragon. So let's see what we get here. Ooh, an Atma weapon. That'll come in nice and handy later on in the seed. Nobody War also taking down the Ice Dragon there with 2 of his 4 characters frozen. So very nicely done to get out of that potential bad situation. And it is a gem box, which is basically 25 or 30 grand. Ooh, little speed +2 and Berserk there. Plus the Osmos for not running out of MP. So that's a pretty nice Esper pickup. Alright, so we got Floating Continent play for Drinksglue. I really like this play at this point. In the race, it's early enough where you are guaranteed to get progression at the first and third checks here on the floating continent, which means that you probably will run into a character at some point on the floating continent. So when we don't have 6 yet, that's kind of the best time to do this. So I like this play here. Jexvarok, meanwhile, dealing with Inferno's little brother, and now that both of the arms are out of the way, the Berserked characters can just go ham on the rest of the body, and that goes away. Tritok Spot can only be an Esper and item, so we'll see what it is here. Nobody War in the Velt Cave, which is one of Shadow's checks. We could see what's on the ground before we fight it. It could be either an Esper or a sprite of a character or an NPC sprite. If it's an NPC sprite, then we know that it's a dead check. Bahamut's the Esper at the top of the Tritok Cliffs, and that's another boss down for Jexy as well. Another good thing about Drinks Glue here, taking on the floating continent, is there's actually 4 bosses in this 3-part check. So he'll get even closer to Skip by going to the floating continent right away. Turdsman is heading towards the Burning House area here in Thamasa. It is an Esper on the ground for Nobody War, so he's going to go pick that up. Jexvarok, meanwhile, still looking around at Monster in a Boxes, especially now that he's got that Atma weapon sword. Haydn and the Haydnites, and oh god, it's Magimaster. Well, does he know Berserk yet? I'm pretty sure one of those Espers taught Berserk. It's just a matter of, can he get to it before Magimaster kills him again? And this is rough, because you don't even have a save point here, really, where you could reset to. I think Cyan is the one that has that Berserk. But he's just going to keep dying here. So what do we do here? Oh, we'd use our life too. Here we go. I still don't think Cyan's going to survive even with the life too. Umaro's cave here. I don't know exactly what the reward was because I was paying attention to this Magimaster fight. Oh, that's unlucky. Cyan just keeps dying here, but Drinks Glue, like I said, has got to power through this because there is no... He'd have to start the floating continent all over again. And that's one of those decisions where you just... It's sort of like a sunk cost fallacy at this point. Like, thankfully Cyan survives one turn so that he could perhaps use Berserk. There it is. Finally. Oh, I almost spoke too soon. I did speak too soon. I am so sorry, Drinks Glue. Cyan is just so damn slow that Magimaster got off 2 turns before Cyan could go even once. Meanwhile, Nobody War does get through Inferno with another Esper that is Madu in there. Or not Inferno. I'm sorry, Jexvarok is taking on Inferno. Nobody War is taking on Haydn. See, I probably would have went right back at Magimaster and put one of my elemental doohickeys on Cyan there. Or at least maybe taught Strago with the Minerva that spell. The Berserk spell. I missed what was at the top of Fanatics because I was looking away to update the counters. But that is going to be a high tier item, and this boss will net Turdsman and Esper at the at the bottom. Triple R Deuce and Jesus the Frog, thanks for following. Same with Comey Chris, Tindalos FF, Dakar, 825, all with the new follows to our Twitch chat. We're also on YouTube, if you would like to check out our YouTube content. FF6 Worlds Collide is on YouTube, and Drinks Glue here running into Marshall Tap Dancer. Not fun. And Jexvarok accidentally runs into Dataluma in the sky. That's an interesting boss to find there. So you can run into Doomgaze by accident, or if you have Setzer, you could do Search the Skies and get the Doomgaze spot every time. So, unlike in the vanilla game where Marshall has some Lobos, we decided that we wanted to make Marshall an actual decent boss to fight, so we decided to upgrade his goons from just some wolves to some other different random enemies, so that's why you see the tap dancers here. Umaro is confused. Hopefully he does not kill Strago. Yeah, he'll be fine. Meanwhile, Turret's been on his way back down from Fanatic's Tower. You unfortunately cannot warp out of Fanatics. That has to do with the tile eventing and other various sorts of code stuff that is way too boring to talk about here. But he is going to get his Magicite. So let's put that on the board for him. So the question here is, do we try and get our other characters up before we kill Marshall? That's what Drinks Glue is pondering here, and it looks like he's going to go for it. Dexvarok, meanwhile, is in Thamasa, so he's in the right place for his last character. I think the only other place that the character could be is Kefka at Narsh at this point. I think we've seen everything else other than Cyan's Dream number 2. So Cyan's Dream 2 and Kefka at Narsh are the last two spots. Simultaneous boss kills on the bottom half of your screen for an Esper for Drinks Glue, and then one for Nobody War as well. Does Nobody War only have 3 Espers? I thought he had 4. Oop, that's the wrong way. My tracking might be off because, like I said, I am doing all of the button pushings and commentaries and streamings by myself. So be sure to give me a follow. Shameless plug. TheSchwantz27 here on Twitch. Also give our runners a follow. Can't have the races without them. It's Cyan's Dream 2 for our bottom half of runners, and our top runners are in Burning House. There's a dragon horn in the chest here in Cyan's Dream, so I'm wondering if either one of those two bottom runners go back for those Dragoon boots that we saw in the Relic shop. That's something that I would be considering. Boots and Horn is a pretty good endgame build here. Maybe not for Jex, because he looks like he's going to trudge forward with this Ragnarok on Strago and assorted other accoutrements on his other characters. I think Yeti's got the Pearl Lance and the Dragon Claw still for Cyan. He's basically just put his controller down at this point of the run. No, I'm just kidding. Like Raid Shadow Legends, the game is just playing itself. No, we are not sponsored by them. That wasn't a sneaky ad, I promise. Alright, we're going to see what the second boss of Cyan's Dream is. So unlike the Floating Continent, which is a 3-part check and 4 bosses, Cyan's Dream is also a 3-part check. However, it only has 2 bosses towards skip. So that's just something to consider there. Alright, we're starting to get towards the end of the Burning House here for Jexy and for Turdsman. And it's another Ultros fight. This time it's Ultros number 3. If we had Sketch, we could end this fight right away, because that's how you do it in the vanilla game. But unfortunately, we do not have Sketch. So we are just going to kill it with fire and kill it with lightning. Neither of which is fun for an octopus. Dexvarok easily dispatching of Ultros there, so he's going to get another boss and his shadow. Same goes for Turdsman as soon as they get to the end here. Couple more boss kills there of Ultros and a couple more Espers because that was an Imp Sprite running across screen. So they're now at 4 and 4 and 5 for the bottom half runners. And ooh, Fenrir, that is a really good Esper to find, especially for the final battle against Kefka in order to help against the third tier with that instant death physical special. So Nobody War and Drink Glue are going to be happy going 3 for 3 in Cyan's Dream there. That's what happens when the no free progression flag is on. You tend to get a lot of pieces of progression when you do checks that have fights. All right, A Silverthorn with a Prime sub, 12 months in a row. Thank you so much, Silverthorn. Also appreciate all of the hard work that you do for the community with regard to keeping our platform actually online so we can go roll and download seeds, and doing a lot of the development work because we are in it is sort of an open source project here. However, there are a handful of developers. I've written 1 or 3 lines of code for the for the game, but there are certainly those that contribute a lot more. So again, thank you. Our subscription money goes towards donations for upcoming charity tournaments that our racers will be featured in. We do not have a current tournament that we have scheduled upcoming. However, there's always rumblings of organizing tournaments, so be on the lookout. Check this space, all those fancy buzzwords and all that. Jexfarok decides that he sees a soldier at the bottom and wants to go get the Esper at the top of Fanatic's Tower. Our bottom runners are chasing each other around here, now in the world of Ruin Narsh. And we know that there isn't a character at the Yeti stuff. So our next character has got to be at either Kefka at Narsh or on the floating continent somewhere. And remember, floating continent number 1 is the floating continent number 1 is Magimaster. We do have access to Berserk though, but we always have to keep that in the back of the mind. Thank you, Jesus, for the update on the Esper counts. I thought I had seen 1 less than I had, so I decremented it, but I was right. Always trust my own instinct. If you learn anything from me on the stream today. Alright, so Turdsman is going to go get his free lunch here in the form of a gem box. I hope there's some good sandwiches inside of that gem box, because otherwise it'd be pretty worthless. Dragon down for Drinks Glue. And it looks like Jex is going to take on the Fanatics Tower Dragon. We didn't see this one on the way up from our other runners, and it is the Red Dragon. So White Dragon down for Nobody War as well there. Atma Weapon is the drop, and Shadow can use the Atma Weapon, so I think that's what he'll probably be doing all game. Strength +2 Esper as well. Very nice. Meanwhile, I think Turdsman is just mixing and matching his characters here. I missed what the drop was from the dragon there in Fanatic's Tower. And I think Jex has actually more Magicite than I gave him credit for. Alright, so here comes Turdsman with that floating continent play. We, being the omniscient seers of all runners, know that this is where our next character must be if it's not at Kefka at Narsh. And the character is either at the first location or the third location on the floating continent. The second location can only be an Esper or an item. It is another Dragon Horn at the top of Fanatics, actually. So that's the second one we've gotten. One from the train car in Cyan's Dream, and another at the top here. There are Dragoon Boots in a relic shop that we saw at the very beginning of the game, but haven't seen any of our runners go back to go get them yet. I think Jexrock with the Pearl Lance is probably the person that is most likely going to get it. Actually, Nobody War and Drinks Glue both got their Pearl Lances from beating up the White Dragon here at the top of Narsh, so never mind. Either one of them could always do that. So, question from the chat. There could actually be a character at Floating Continent 1 and Floating Continent 3. That is a possibility. So those are the 3 locations now for our next character. Floating Continent 1, Floating Continent 3, or Kefka at Narsh. Let me know in the chat who you think our 5th character is going to be and which one of those 3 spots it is going to be at. I'm going to go with... let's go with Setzer at Floating Continent number 3. Let's make them sweat a little bit here. Nobody War getting another Magicite and another boss down. And here is the Magimaster for Turdsman. Thankfully, his Berserk user can actually stay alive today. Again, in case you're just joining us, this is a Umaro's flag set for Coliseum 2. And it is an Esper from the carving there, Raiden. So that's probably the 2 Espers I missed from Jexrock, because he did this loop here earlier on. And it's Tritok that goes down very easily at the top of Fanatic's Tower to get their Magicite at the bottom there. Alright, so now that Magimaster has been berserked, this fight should be relatively easy. Alright, we got some more predictions coming in for where our characters are going to be. We got Gogo at Floating Continent 1 and Gao at Floating Continent number 3. Gao is my favorite character in Worlds Collide. He's got multiple opportunities to have some good commands on him, although not in this particular seed or this flag set. Alright, so I'm looking at Nobody War's tracker on his stream, and it says that he's got 8 Espers, so we're gonna... Oh, you know why? Because he has to get past this Inferno fight first. That's why. Dex, meanwhile, picking up his 6th Esper. And Drinks Glue picks up their 7th there. Meanwhile, it is Celeste at Floating Continent number 1. So Turdsman's our first runner with their 5th character. Howls at Moons wants Realm at Kefka. Well, that is still a possibility. And my guess of Setzer at Floating Continent 3 is also still a possibility. But unfortunately, Gogo is not going to be at Floating Continent 1 here. Ooh, Delta Hit coming out for Inferno. I don't know if Nobody War found the Esper with the... He's got 8 of them, so he probably does have the Esper with Bolt 3 on it. The problem with Inferno is when he gets to levels that are pretty high and we're pretty late in the seed, he gets very strong with his abilities. You saw that launcher ability there. Reduces your party to fractional levels of HP. However, he does get past Inferno and is going to pick up what supposedly is his 9th Esper here. I don't know where the heck he got them all. Oh, okay. That's why. He was using Dance with Strago. That's what confused me. Because I thought he was still outside with the background. Alright, so we know that our runners have to head to the Floating Continent to get their character. Let's see if Nobody War decides to do that. Meanwhile, we got another boss coming up for Turdsman at Floating Continent number 2. I forgot to check off his 2 bosses that he did, so he's up to 6 now. And this spot will be only Esper item. And kill a Yeti with the Yeti. Interesting proposition here. Drinks Glue, meanwhile, is going to take on this dragon here, the Ice Dragon. Gonna grab their Thunder Shield as a reward. Nobody War into Doma Siege. This is not a character, but he's still going for it anyway. Okay, I must have... Alright. So... He is at 8 Espers right now, not 9. He will be at 9 after this fight. Meanwhile, Jexrock has to take on Magimaster with a bunch of Berserked characters, so... That's not exactly fun, but thankfully, Magimaster is also Berserked. The thing is, Magimaster has such high defense that some of these Berserked characters are just not going to hurt him very much. So that's Thunder Shield and Dragon number 2 for Drinks Glue. He will get Esper number 8 at the end of Mount Zozo. And it's just a matter of when will our runners get to Floating Continent? Or will they try to peek Kefka at Narsh? Alright, so Strago going to use the Atma weapon here against Magimaster, which does ignore defense. However, Magimaster has super high physical evade, so as you see, most of his characters are missing here. This is the one time you don't really want a Berserked party against... Well, I mean, Magimaster is very difficult regardless, but having a Berserked party here is just not ideal. Because the only way that he could be damaged at this point is... with Umaro's body slams and with some non-elemental attack from Strago. Just remember, as soon as he gets hit first, that's when the wall change comes on. And there it is, Magimaster down for Jexrock. I didn't actually see what the second boss was here. It was so fast for Turdsman. We're going to see what the third boss of the Floating Continent is. Oh, and it's Kefka at Narsh. So we could have yet another peace ring. And oh boy, it is a statue boss. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue is going to head into the cave on the Veldt. They're going to be getting their 9th Esper. And Nobody War is going to make the trek to Kefka at Narsh before heading to Floating Continent to see if this is a character. I think he's at his last location. And by the way, that is Blitz on Celeste, so that's really a great ability for that character. Blitz is based on your magical power, and hey, it's Sabin at Kefka at Narsh. Speaking of Blitz. So, we do have another character at Kefka at Narsh. Unfortunately, it is not Realm. It is Sabin. And Katana Soul monster in a box there for Jexrock, so he's got an offering to go with his Atma weapon for Strago or whomever is going to use it. Interestingly enough, Strago decides to leave Celeste alone. To be fair, Cyan is doing a big beefy amount of damage there with that Dragon Claw. So I could understand really leaning into the flag set here. As we do have a Tunnel Armor as the boss here at Kefka at Narsh. So this will be interesting because now we'll have some divergence amongst our runners. Turdsman and Jexrock will be able to do Celeste's checks. The South Figaro prisoner spot will not have a piece of progression. It'll be either Esper or item. So that leaves them with either Magitech Factory or Opera House. Magitech Factory can only have a character at the very end of Magitech Factory, Magitech 3. So I could see them perhaps prioritizing Opera House over those, or over that really, really long check, rather. So Nobody War has much better options available to him with Sabin. Sabin does not have a command, however, he has 64 strength. But Nobody War is hanging on with the Yeti. And it is Golem, so that is another great Esper for Final Kefka. So it is official. We either have Celeste's checks or Sabin's checks here to get our 6th character. Actually, that's not true. We can have 6 characters right now. I wonder if Turdsman decides to just go peak Kefka at Narsh, because it's shorter than Opera House and shorter than Magitech Factory. That might be an interesting call here. Had I sat down and thought about it for a little bit, I would definitely peak Kefka at Narsh before going all the way through Opera House or all the way through the 3 parts of the Magitech Factory. Those are much longer checks. The walk up to Kefka at Narsh is maybe about 45 seconds long. Meanwhile, Imperial Camp is where we are going for Nobody War. Unfortunately, there is no boss in Imperial Camp. However, he already has 9 bosses killed. So let me bump up that counter. So what that means is he could actually jump into Kefka's tower, take out Inferno, then Guardian, then Poltergeist. Those are the spots. And he'll have Kefka Tower skip, and then he could skip back in and split his party up 2 and 2. Yeah, so it looks like Drinks Glue is getting called out in the chat, passing up petting the dog. So this is not dog percent. We are trying to go fast here. However, there are certain meme unwritten rules. You always suplex the train when you can. You always pet the dog, and that is Mog. They're at Imperial Camp. So Nobody War going to get his 6th character. Yeah, I figured that since Drink Glue says the word dog so much, he would never pass up the opportunity to pet the dog. But this is what happens when you're in a high-pressure race, ladies and gentlemen. Go follow our runners, because they are putting on the show for you. Racing is a lot of pressure. Kurtzman, meanwhile, taking just a slight detour off of his checks here. He does have 8 bosses killed, but he only has 5 characters and 6 Espers, so he might unlock Skip even before getting Go mode. And we see Ebbets Rock here for Drinks Glue. This is not going to be a character. This is going to be yet another Esper, which is quite unfortunate for him. Remember, he was one of our runners, or actually the first runner to go up to Floating Continent and got railroaded by Magimaster. Magimaster just would not allow his Berserk user to stay alive long enough to use the Berserk spell. So this is going to be a feels bad, because he is essentially last locationing his 5th character here. And I gotta believe it's because he had already gone up to the Floating Continent and got stonewalled by our Magimaster up there. Meanwhile, Turd's been going back to the Coliseum. This is his 3rd trip into the Coliseum. Meanwhile, I was mistaken. That is Final Kefka unlocked for Nobody War. So he must have picked up a Magicite when I wasn't looking. And he's got 9 boss kills, so Nobody War in very good position here. Meanwhile, Jax is at the end of the Floating Continent here, taking on Doom, and Turdsman decides, nah, I'm good. I don't even know what he was trying for. I know it was a dragon that sneezed him away, which is one of those annoying fights. Was it an Aura Lance, maybe? I know that there's a Ragnarok for the Madam, so we'll see if he can actually give the Madam a try here. Here's another annoying boss for having a Berserked team. Phase 2 of Doom. So Doom, on his 2nd phase, will gain the Image status, and he will gain the Reflect status. So unless you do stuff like that, yeeting your partner at him, He will dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge your attacks. Auto Berserk for Turdsman, plus the 30 strength there as well for that Ragnarok. Third time is the charm for him. As I believe Nobody War is about to head into Kefka's Tower. He'll be our first runner in at 51 minutes and 20-ish seconds. So that is a really, really zoomy time here for Nobody War. There we go. His audio sounded just a little strange. We'll get that right on track there. So what I think he should do, and I don't know if he set up his party that way because I was busy messing around with the stream, is he should overload his party into party 1. Go up the middle, defeat Inferno, defeat Guardian, defeat Poltergeist, those 3 spots, and then he'll be able to skip into the middle again. So I don't know if that's what he is doing on this fight, but we'll see what happens here as Jexvarok getting a heal from the lady in the bucket there. Got his 8th Esper and his 9th boss from the end of the floating continent. Yeah, it looks like Nobody War is not doing the overload party trick that I mentioned earlier. Because the 12 bosses are not required for Kefka unlock, that is for Kefka Tower skip. So that's why we have been tracking it all stream. Alright, so now that Turdsman has a team full of Berserk users, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with the rest of the seed. Because he will not have control over the majority of his party, I'm assuming, at this point. It is the Grabby Pasta Tentacles here. One of the least fun fights to have in Kefka's Tower, because your party is always at a reduced capacity, and that means it usually takes a lot longer to beat this boss because they are grabbing you and taking your turns away from you. Meanwhile, Jexvarok heading down into the Magitech factory. He can only get a character at Magitech number 3, and he's currently at 5 characters and 8 Espers, so he's hoping for a long trip through the factory to yield him some positive results. As I mentioned earlier, the other option he has available now are Kefka at Narsh, which is where Nobody War found Sabin, or the Opera House Disruption, which we have not seen yet. That's another boss down, and another piece of Magicite there for Turdsman. And here comes Magimaster. Can Drinks Glue deal with this? There's the Berserk. Unfortunately, couldn't get it off before Umaro. Yeah, this Tentacles fight is just going to take a very long time. And assuming that Turdsman takes on 3 more checks to get his 6th character and 2 more Espers, takes on 3 more bosses rather, I should say, he will be able to skip this fight altogether. Jexy, meanwhile, the first boss is Rexol, not what you want to see when you have a Berserk team. So Jexvarok is running into just all the bosses that are terrible to find when you have no control over your characters. Between Magimaster and Rexol and Doom, just horrific. Drinks Glue making use of GP Rain here, because the rest of his team is not doing a heck of a lot of damage because of Magimaster's high physical evade and very high physical defense. That is the first boss down for Nobody War here in Kefka's Tower. Turdsman, meanwhile, is taking the walk up to Kefka at Narsh, I believe this is. No, it is not. It is the World of Ruin Narsh, so he's going to get 2 more Espers here after fighting 2 more bosses. So in a few minutes, Turdsman will be 1 character from Go mode. Jexvarok, meanwhile, grabs another Esper. That's his 9th Esper. 10th boss. However, he still needs 1 character. So let's see what he does here. Does he warp out or does he continue on in deeper to the Magitech factory? Let's find out. This is thrilling to watch, folks. Throwing that Ragnarok on Cyan, because Cyan can actually get crits with that Ragnarok, unlike Umaro. And Drinks Glue taking down Magimaster, so that's his 9th boss down. Nobody War decides, I want to take on the Storm Durgan here at the 20th hour. So this will be his 3rd dragon here. Trying to get some XP or MP onto... Oh no! Oh no! F's in the chat for Nobody War. Getting the hyperdrive to the face. You hate to see it happen. And there it is, Celeste for Drinks Glue. After putting off Floating Continent for so long because of that original OG Magimaster fight. Jexvarok just defeated the 2nd boss. I didn't even see what the heck it was. It was so fast. But he does get his 10th Esper, and that's his 11th boss. He'll be fighting 2 more bosses before getting another character here. Alright, Turdsman, meanwhile, is hanging out at the top of Norsh. He did take out his first dragon there, so let me put that on the board. Meanwhile, Drinks Glue needs to get another character. So at this point, his options are continuing on to Floating Continent 3 to get that 3rd character, or short-circuiting out before Floating Continent 2 and doing either Celeste's Magitech Factory number 3 or the Opera House Disruption, or Kefka at Narsh, which is where we have found Sabin, or at least Nobody War found Sabin. Having a rough go against this dragon when you have 6 characters, 9 Espers, and 2 dragons. You essentially are going against level 17 times 2, that's 34, and half of 17 is, well, let's call it 9. 9 plus 34 is 43, so this is a level 42, 43, something like that dragon here against 2 of your party members. And defeating this dragon, yes, will get him more XP, however, it will also get his enemy levels that much higher. So now his enemy levels will be at 45-ish. Behemoth suit, though, is the reward, which is one of the better pieces of armor in the game. And oh my goddess. Again, we've been saying it all seed, people. Repeat with me. Not a boss you want to see against with a berserked crew. Because Goddess will counter physical attacks with Love Token, which means that Shadow is dead, basically. And oh my god, Umaro has a Pearl Lance too. This is just horrific. Yeah, unfortunately, Jex really leaned into the theme of the seed here with going Berserk. And it's going to cost him, because he had to basically roll the dice a bunch of times. And he just also did not get favorable bosses here either. Another Magicite there for Turdsman. That'll be his 9th when he defeats this boss. Jexy getting through his first of 2 bosses. Will get his KT skip, I believe, here. or already got it, because I didn't see the notification flash up. But he's got to be pretty close. Because he did all the floating continent, and this will be all of Magitech Factory. So that's 8 just there. And oh, it's a disaster. Not a character at the end of the Magitech Factory either. Oh boy. So that means our character is either at Opera House Disruption, or we already know that Sabin is at Kefka at Narsh. Like I said, I think before you did all of Celeste's checks, you go and peek Kefka at Narsh to see if your character is there or not. Another boss and another Esper for Drinks Glue. Remember, the skip is not at 12 Espers like it is in Ultras League. It's at 12 bosses. So all of these extra Espers that Drinks Glue is racking up is not going to help him here. Meanwhile, Nobody War is finally up to the switches. He had a little bit of trouble against that dragon. There has been with Esper number 9 and boss number 11, however. So let's see if he makes the choice here. His choices are Opera House Disruption and Kefka at Narsh and Magitech Factory number 3 for his 6th character. I believe he's seen everything else. It looks like he is going to make the right choice here, going to peek Kefka at Narsh first. Drinks Glue finding that Katana Soul monster in a box on the floating continent, or that offering for that Atma weapon to use with Shadow. Unfortunately, he gets sneezed off the screen and won't get any of that juicy XP. It is Chatternook, and Yeti has a Pearl weapon. I believe it's a Greatus. So it's not going to hurt this form very much. However, it will start hurting the normal form, or the demon form of Chatternook, which will be great. Chatternook weak to Pearl and Fire. More weak to Pearl for sure than Fire. Being a demon and everything. Look at that damage. Unfortunately, Umaro is going to get sat down there. What is Nobody War doing? Is he waiting to go back into girl form? No, he's just waiting for a counterattack, it looked like. Yeah, a lot of damage coming out from that fire spell. Er's been finding the Sabin at the top of Kefka at Narsh, and we'll do a little happy dance wherever he is there. Does Mog know life too? That would make a lot of sense. Nope, he's just gonna plow through this here. Sometimes you gotta know when to cut your losses, and Nobody War seems to have considered all the options here and decides that it would take me longer to get Umaro up and keep him healthy. Because remember, Chatternook basically counters everything with a lightning spell there, as you see. However, now that we're changing from one form to another, it is the Golem Magicite there for Drinks Glue, and that is his Kefka Tower skip. 5 characters rather, 12 Espers, and it looks like he is also making the correct choice there to head to Kefka at Narsh to get his 6th and final character. Kurzman, meanwhile, accidentally running into some enemies here. Yeti just barely hanging on. Not anymore. Alright, come on, Mog. Make this count. There it is. Boom shakalaka. Chatternook goes down. So thankfully, Nobody War will not have to walk back through KT there, getting that boss down. And it is Tunnel Armor at Kefka at Norsh, which is where Turdsman will get his Go mode and his Skip mode. So even though Nobody War entered the tower way, way before some of our other runners at around 53 minutes, something like that. I think he unlocked Kefka at 51 and change. This is the power of the skip right here, as Turdsman will basically be at the switches. Getting Sabin for his Go mode. Meanwhile, Jax noping out of the Velt Cave after seeing that it was an Esper on the ground. He's going to be also disappointed when he gets to the end of Mount Zozo there. Ruh-roh. Little Merton action against the team from the top stooge there. Unfortunately, that top stooge will absorb this fire spell. Oh, I thought Mog had cast fire against him. Good on Nobody War for knowing the boss weaknesses here. And that is Go mode there for Drinks Glue as well. Unlocking final Kefka. This is a dangerous fight with only 2 party members. $51.20 was the time he entered Kefka's tower. I wasn't positive. I didn't know if that was the unlock or the enter Kefka's tower. I remember saying one but thinking the other. So thank you, chat, for keeping me honest. Jexy resetting out of Mount Zozo there, seeing the Esper. So now his choice, I believe, is down to Opera House Disruption or Kefka at Norsh. It's got to be at this point. I mean, I guess it could technically be Cyan's Dream, unless he went through that already. Another Delta hit coming out. So here's part of the problem with the Stooges. If you don't kill them quickly, they will use Delta hit every 3 or 4 turns. I think what Nobody War has to do, there you go, is kill one of them, then unpetrify Umaro. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah, so Umaro unfortunately is not going to get XP for this fight, because being petrified is considered being wounded, which is essentially the same as being dead. A lot of Minervas for Turdsman there on his screen. 3 of them, to be exact. And a Snow Muffler on Shadow, so that is a pretty stacked armored party. And that is Kefka Tower skip there for Nobody War as well. So we'll see if he decides to nope out of here and reform the party at the skip. Turdsman, meanwhile, heading into the skip at the statue spot, which is where Drinks Glue just was a second ago. And is going to run into Chatternook, I believe. Unless he takes the first side first. The left side first, rather. Jax is going to be happy as well to get his 6th character there. As Tunnel Armor is dead from the 1 shot. Thank you very much, Atma Weapon. And that'll be Jexvarox's Go mode. So all 3 of our runners that ended up with skip outside of the tower getting into the tower within like the same minute or two of one another. So this is going to be a very interesting rest of the race here, as we do have an Air Force. Ooh, the shrapnel. I hate to see it. Yeah, so the bosses now, at the levels that they're at with all of our runners, because remember, it's characters, espers, dragons times 2.5, are just going to unload on you, and you got to be able to kill these bosses fast. Drinks Glue took out Chatternook with no problem, and that's because of Shadow with the Atma weapon offering there. Jex Varrock heading into the tower as well, 112-ish. Our other two runners were in around 110 and change, 111 and change. So this is still anybody's race. Bosses are going down a lot quicker for Turdsman and for Drinks Glue than they are for Nobody War. So yes, their enemies are going to be stronger just due to the nature of the fact that they have had more progression, but that also means their characters are going to be stronger. Yeah, so Turdsman took out the left-hand side boss first. That was that Air Force, and is now working on the middle. So he has 3 bosses technically left in Kefka's tower. Nobody War has just 1, because he has just the right side to do, as soon as he gets out of this menu. Drinks Glue taking down his second of 4 bosses, and Jex Varrock is on his first here. So, Nobody War still with the slight lead, in spite of the fact that he entered into Kefka's tower long before our other two. And we'll get to see what the boss is on the right-hand side here, thanks to Nobody War, who has a pretty balanced team. That's what happens when you don't get your characters until super late in the seed. Trying to figure out what he wants Sabin to learn. And Drinks Glue is giving us our first look at the right-hand side. And it is Atma. Another very difficult boss, especially at high levels. Thankfully, Atma is weak to, or not as weak, but does not like the main elemental spells. The Pearl weapon that Sabin has, however, is not going to be good, so he's going to want to trade that in for something else right away. Yeah, even the Dragon Claw is Pearl Elemental too, so that's not going to help. Jex Varrock looking to try and run away from this fight. The only boss fight that you could run away from is actually Ifrit and Shiva when they are... when they're transitioning from one to the other. And I tried this once, and I don't know how reproducible it is, so I'm not going to say that you could always do it, but I have run away from Marshall before. If you kill the goons first, or rather, if you kill Marshall first, you could run away from the goons. So I don't know if that's a bug. That's something I have to try, because I definitely did it once when I was playing Worlds Collide on my holiday on my mobile phone. So that's really fun. You could download a Super Nintendo emulator and play the game. ff6worldscollide.com to generate a seed. Drinks Glue finding out the hard way that Atma at high levels is no joke. And unfortunately, I think Nobody War is going to bite the dust here as well. Ooh, he's so close. So now, there it is. You're going to use the elixir here. Very smart. He is not only low on health, but he's also out of MP for magic. So I really like that play from Nobody War there. It's a good time to burn your elixir. Turdsman taking down his third boss of the gauntlet. So he's only got one more to go. Jexvarok here on his second boss, the Stooges. Drinks Glue, this is his third boss. Ooh, Quake is never fun. Mostly because it damages you and heals Atma. Oh, this is a beefy boy. Still tanking 9,000 damage fire 3s. Shadow barely hanging on here. Can he get this one last turn in order to kill Atma? Yes, he does it. Very nicely calculated there from Nobody War, and he is going to be our first runner with 4 bosses down, and he'll step on the switches momentarily. Meanwhile, Jexvarok dispatching of the last Stooge there. Had a bit of an easier time than some of our other runners with that difficult boss. Quad 9s for Drinks Glue, and there goes Atma. Alright, now Nobody War's just got to make sure he's got the right Espers on. We know that the runners that went to Cyan's Dream have Fenrir. The runners that went to Floating Continent, which is basically everybody but Nobody War, have Golem. So we do have Calmness Protection out here. I know I saw Siren at some point. So some of our runners may have Mute against Magic. And I'm also not positive about Instant Death. So Instant Death is for 2 parts of Final Kefka. On Tier 1 and on Tier 2. So we'll see how that goes. The top of the screen will be a little more interesting, the Kefka fights, because they have those berserked characters, and remember, you can't control what targets you're hitting, and in the final Kefka battle, you do have to do the targets in a specific order. Otherwise, you run the risk of counterattacks and death counters. Turdsman, meanwhile, taking out Atma, which I believe is his last boss there. So he'll be ready to ascend to the final Kefka fight. As soon as Nobody War gets out of this menu, he will be there too. So newer runners, if you're looking for advice on how to get faster, is that just go when you think you have enough to go. Perfect is the enemy of the possible. That is the quote that I like to use. Because you could spend so much time, as our runners are right now, crafting the perfect set of items to do it. And wouldn't you know it, Turdsman actually has passed up Nobody War here, who's been in the menu for what seems like eternity. So Turdsman is our first runner on to Final Kefka, and that is the power of the skip there as well. They are, however, just seconds apart, though. So this is still a very, very close race. As I believe now Drinks Glue is going to hit up the switches there. So both him and Nobody War are literal seconds apart. And Turdsman is about maybe a 30-second cutscene ahead of both of them. And Jexvarok, meanwhile, if a Marsupial doesn't end his run there. Whew. That was close. Jexvarok here is going to have to hold on against Atma. Turdsman with those 2 berserked characters. It'll be interesting to see how this team does against Drinks Glue, who did not get that auto berserk. Meanwhile, Jexvarok does take down his last boss there, Umaro, barely scraping by. So he's probably going to be about a minute behind Turdsman. It looks like he'll probably be about 45 or so seconds behind the other 2 runners. Nobody War and Drinks Glue picking out their party. The person in slot 4 will go first on tiers 2, 3, and 4. So party order is somewhat important here. Celeste taking a nap on the ground there, getting back up here with that Atma weapon. And it doesn't look like we have instant death, so Long arm is going to be an issue for a little bit. We do want to take down the head first, weak to fire, but will death counter with quake. And that is the real, like, big thing to be afraid of here. Drinks Glue pulling out Break out of the bag of tricks, knows that arm is susceptible to petrify, so there goes the long arm there. Nobody War has got access to Fire 3, so that's what he is going to be using to take down the head first there. Dexrock, meanwhile, I think has a party full of Berserk characters, so we'll see what happens here. Question for the chat. Sorry, I didn't even see this before. Slam Ian, or Slamian, is the Kefka level set by the formula mentioned earlier? No, it is not. So Kefka's levels are the same as they are in vanilla. So all of the levels of the boss are going to be in the 70s or 80s. All of the HP thresholds and the battle scripts are the same as vanilla. By the way, as I was mentioning that, Drinks Glue takes over first place from Turdsman there. So somebody mentioned it, I think Kurgzy did, that Glue's offense is better than Turdsman's is. He had a lot more levels than Turdsman did, just based on the numbers that you're looking at on the screen here. So Glue hopping back into the lead here. And we'll see how our runners deal with Tier 2. We do have access to instant death in the form of Raiden here, the Esper Summon, and that will take out tools. Very nicely done. We have access to some ice spells, which is one of Tiger's weaknesses, or is Tiger's weakness, rather. I don't know if we have Mute, which will nullify magic, unfortunately. I know that one of our runners picked up Siren, I just wasn't sure who. Might have been Nobody War. Out comes Unicorn from Turdsman. That is going to heal any... I'm sorry, that's Kieran, not Unicorn. So that is going to cast Regen on the whole party. You best be frozen. So the only way to unfreeze your person is to hit them with fire, and that's what Drinks Glue is going to do here. 16,000 damage per turn coming out of Shadow there with the Atma weapon. That's pretty beefy damage. Or as Phil Swift says, that's a lot of damage. But yeah, so Final Kefka is always the same, and we do that to sort of mitigate, you know, some runners running into like some bad consequences. Like Drinks Glue got way more espers than he should have in this particular seed just due to routing, right? That would mean his final battle is way unfair compared to the others. So the final battle is always going to be the same, at least in most flag sets that I've seen. You can apply the scaling formula to the final battle, but 99 times out of 100 it scales the final battle down, and it makes it much faster and not nearly as fun or intricate due to the way that just the battle plays out. Unfortunately, with no access to instant death, Turdsman falling further behind here on Tier 2, as he still has to deal with not only the damage that is being output by tools, but just the animations here. Yeah, I think had Nobody War split up his party to do everybody in lane 3 and then take the skip when he got to the top of Kefka's tower, he would definitely be in much better position. But, you know, when going from one flag set to another, sometimes you just don't think about that, right? It's hard to switch gears. As we are switching over to Drinks Glue's audio here, because he is on to Tier 3, while the rest of our runners are still stuck in Tier 2. So Tier 3 has two different parts, and we want to kill the girl first. The problem is the girl absorbs all of our elements, so he has been relying on magic for a lot of damage this particular seed, aside from that Atma weapon. So this is where Turdsman has an opportunity to catch up, because he could definitely do more damage to girl a lot faster. Relying on GP Rain for damage in the final fight is never a fun feeling. Yeah, so doing some non-elemental things like Drain. Fortunately, his characters got damaged pretty badly at the beginning, but Drain will only give you, will only deal damage for the amount of HP you're losing. Nobody War in a rough spot here. Shadow is frozen. Cyan is stoned, and Umaro is dead. So he's only got one character right now that he can control. Let's see if he could rebound and bounce back from this, as he's having some rough luck here on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. Meanwhile, Jexferox's Cyan is frozen, and his Shadow and Umaro are pretty angry. However, anger does translate into damage, and that gets him through here, as unfortunately Turdsman has got 2 of his characters down as well, or 3 of his 4 party members down. So he's looking to pick them back up now again. Ooh, and Shadow frozen yet again for Nobody War. You hate to see it happen. I believe we've taken care of Girl on Drinks Glue's screen. We do want to put up our Fenrir summon when we think we're in a pretty decent state for doing Calmness. We don't want to cast it too early, because the problem is if Sleep ends up killing one of our characters, when they come back, when they get revived with the Phoenix down, they do not have that image status on them. So that's why Drinks Glue is playing this a little bit slow and steady, casting that Golem. So that will also do the trick. Protects physical damage for the amount of HP that the attacker has. And that is 17,000 damage with Shadow. Get out of here, Sleep. Trying to come at me, bro. As he is up to tier 4 now. Turdsman has the band back together, as Jexrock blocks the Calmness as well. So we're probably like 15 seconds apart between Jex and Drinks Glue. So this is a crazy race. The lead has changed multiple times here, just in the past, like, 5 minutes of this final fight here in Kefka. Turdsman first on the switches, right? Nobody War was first in the tower. Drinks Glue then surpassed him. Jexferox was last on the switches, and he's currently in second, but Final Kefka has the last laugh, or the first laugh, because he opens with a laugh. Anyway, he will counter with Fallen 1 after the first turn, unless you do more than 30,000 damage. Then he starts to get into counter-attack phase. We'll counter with Hyperdrive and Havoc Wing. If he gets under 10,000 HP, we'll counter with Ultima. So Drinks Glue probably has enough HP to tank one of those, but still has to be a little bit careful here. As there goes Strago from that Hyperdrive. However, when he charges for Goner, which is what's going on for Jexferock, is when you hit him for everything you got here. And unfortunately, he's got his 3 Berserked characters rocking and raring to go. Let's see if that's enough damage. The time is on the Crack Pow, and that is a Crack Pow for Jexferox! Sniping the first place win with a time of 1:29.22. Woo! Huge damage coming there from Jex at the very end to take it on home. Get your GGs in the chat, as Drinks Glue unfortunately is going to get hit with a Goner here. The definition of started from the bottom, now we hear. And I think this is going to be Drinks Glue's last turn here. Boom shakalaka, there we go. Drinks Glue, second place, 130.10. Woo! Unfortunately, got stuck with the Goner animation. And he is going to be our second place runner here. And we got Turdsman on tier 3 looking for third place. Nobody War taking the other end of the 10 hits, and I hope that Magic is still alive. Otherwise, we're going to be saying goodbye to the Yeti. As we say hello to our first place winner, Jexferock. Congratulations on your come from behind victory. Last into the Kefka fight, but first on the leaderboard. GG's.
GG's.
Yeah, so give us your thoughts overall on Umaro's Coliseum flags. We haven't seen a Coliseum race in a while, and this one sure was a doozy.
With this one, I went into it just to have fun. But in regards to my strats, my routing, just go nuts, that kind of thing. And I honestly wasn't looking to take first place on this one. I was just, in it for the memes and just showing off some of the weirdness that you can pull off with it, like Fnatic's Tower being one of them.
Yeah, so you went to the Coliseum relatively early, and you didn't have really second thoughts when you saw that Ragnarok and said, you know what? I know that I have to make a decision now that will affect the rest of the seed, but this Ragnarok is good enough, and I'm ready for it. So was that playing into the let's do it for the memes sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I wanted to get the Berserk nice and early. I completely forgot that you did not start with auto Berserk when I did my initial fight against, what was it? My first battle was against Io.
Yes.
And I saw that come up. I'm like, oh no, this could be problematic.
Well, the auto Berserk did come back to bite you a lot of times in this race. I counted, I think, maybe 4 or 5 bosses that you had to fight between Goddess, Magimaster, second phase of Doom, Rexol, Tritok. Yeah, there were so many bosses that were horrible for a team full of Berserkers. So talk us through, what you sort of did when you ran up against those sort of challenges.
Oh yeah, Chatternook was another one.
Oh, and yeah, they're all over. As Turdsman 133.15, taking home third place. He was actually first into the final Kefka fight, but your offense and Drinks Glue's offense were just able to surpass him towards the end. So anyway, but yeah, so those auto Berserk fights, those were a bit rough.
Okay, so there was definitely some strats behind, or some thought process behind what I was doing. As you noticed, I had one character sitting with Riven, and that was Strago, and I was so happy when I found out +2 Magic Esper, and that just sealed the deal with the seed, just having that. So, things like, when I ran into Tritok, I was thinking, this might take a little longer than I expected, but then I remembered I had Bahamut on. It's just like, all right, he's done.
Yep.
Chatternook, to prevent Girl Form from, counterattacking, resetting the ATB bar, and preventing Demon Mode from cutting in. The strat for that one, if you noticed, I also did this on Tier 4 Kefka, was me using the run command. And run command prevents, as long as their ATB bar was not already filled up, and you use the run command, they will not attack.
Oh, that's what the running away was for. I was like, hey, you can't run from this fight. That makes sense, though.
Yep, it was to force Demon Mode, or to prevent further counterattacks from Tier 4 Kefka, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so Nobody War got hit with double Meteo and then double Calmness. So 3 of his 4 main party members were sent away for this final Kefka fight. And now it's just the 2 of us, Sabin and Shadow. So we'll see if he powers through this here. This is going to be an interesting fight here for Nobody War. So, yeah, so I think you were left with a couple of choices towards the end of the seed where you went all the way through Magitech Factory looking for that 6th character, and then when you didn't get it, you went to a couple of peekable checks, and those weren't characters either, and you were forced at that point to choose between Kefka at Norsh and Opera House Disruption. That was sort of an easy one for you, right? Keep going with the peekable checks?
Yep, keep going with the peekable checks, because I could just, reset out. Because if I did the Opera House and found it was another Esper, I would have just been like big old eye roll, reset. I did not want to up any enemy progression any further, and I would have just wasted a big pile of time when I could just did a peek check before I did Opera House. So that means, well, with the routing that I took, obviously that means Kefka at Narsha was required for this seed.
Yes.
So,
unless Opera House Disruption was a character.
Did anybody else do Opera?
Nobody else did it. Yep. Nobody War actually peaked Kefka at Narsh before doing Floating Continent. So he got Mog from Imperial Camp. So you could have avoided the Magimaster and the Doom on Floating Continent altogether, but you just would have had to have gone to Kefka at Narsh first. So.
Gotcha.
We also welcome in Turdsman. GG's on your finish here in this race. Congratulations on sticking it out.
GG's Turds.
We'll chat with you in just a sec here. One final thing I got for you, Jex Rock, is were you just saying, hey, let's let the game play itself when we had Final Kefka and your lone non-Berserk character had fallen over flat?
With my non-Berserk character falling over flat in Tier 4.
Yep.
I saw my damage output. It was astronomical. So, get my characters on the run queue, prevent attacks, get into chaos, get into chaos mode, and let them cut loose.
Yep.
And that sealed the deal for that.
Yeah, your damage was ridiculous. You had the strength +2 Esper on, one of your characters for a lot of the game with that for sure.
I thought I was speed +2.
Was it speed? It was S +2, so you might have been right. So
yeah, 'cause I definitely went for the speed +2 because I had more than enough strength.
Yep.
And I knew with the auto berserk, the speed is going to be real handy for the Tier 4 Kefka because I might be able to, sneak out an extra attack before he does the Garner.
Yeah. And so you actually overtook both Drinks Glue, who won't be joining us because he doesn't have a microphone, and Turdsman, who was actually the first one into Final Kefka. So Turdsman, talk to us a little bit about your Final Kefka and your... Oh, no. Oh... That's a hyperdrive to the face. And Nobody War, unfortunately, I wouldn't want to do that fight again after that happens.
Yeah.
So he's going to take the GGs on that one. So, anyway, what were we talking about? Turdsman, yes. So you actually went into the Final Kefka fight first after getting your skip, but you had a bit of trouble between
yes,
Tier 1 and definitely on Tier 2 for sure.
Yeah, got a little hairy there. I did not realize that Hit was as low on HP as he was because I stopped him at the beginning because Celeste's defense was doo-doo. She had a buckler on. And I didn't want her catching a stray, 400 or 500 damage here and there. So I just stopped him in the beginning, and I just completely forgot that he existed. Well, okay, I don't have to worry about that guy anymore. And then just right at the right time, he dies and knocks out 3 out of my 4 party members.
Yeah, it was a comedy of errors watching, the the recovery. It was Nobody War, I think, had it slightly. It was probably just only slightly better with 1 dead, 1 frozen, 1 petrified on Tier 2.
Oh my!
But yeah. So talk to us a little bit about your thoughts with the Umaro seed, and you had also gone to the Coliseum thrice to go get that.
Oh, good! I'm not the only one.
Well, I know that Jex Rock went at the very beginning of the game. He full committed to the auto berserk, whereas you wanted to, but that madam just would not let you have that Ragnarok.
Yeah, I really should have sold the farm to get them in earlier. Like they were just sitting right there, and I really
for sale.
Let's see. It was Ruin South Figaro, I think. I mean, they were expensive. They were like, I think maybe 20 GP less than the maximum.
I
But
totally missed it.
But like that's the only reason why I was able to pull back out from the abyss at the end there, was because I realized, like, okay, nothing that magic is the only one left. Nothing that magic can do to me is going to hurt me, really. Like muddle would be the one spell that would, no, not even that, because I had a ribbon on Shadow. So I knew, like, I knew that I'd be able to withstand any of the little elemental nonsense that he would do. Yeah, and I should have jumped on that way sooner. Like, I had a ton of items. Like, I was getting no weapons until the very end when that Atma weapon showed up just in time. So I should have just sold a bunch of that stuff. Should have sold that dragon horn way earlier. I sold that gem box right away because, of course. Definitely should have jumped on Minerva's much earlier.
I wanted to make use of that dragon horn.
I know, right?
Yeah,
I found it. I was like, oh, cool! I got a lot of vigor.
Yeah, there were boots definitely in one of the stores too, and I know we found at least 2 of them. I know that people that went through Cyan's Dream, they picked one up in the train car, and then people that did Fanatic's Tower, it was at the top of it. So.
Yeah, I did. I never went and got the boots because that would have been handy, just having a character jumping and smashing things even further, because the multiplier starts stacking real big then.
Yeah.
Because
plus they stay out of the way.
So like, slap the Pearl Lance on Yeti, slap on the boots and the boots and horn on him. Berserk giving a multiplier, the Lance giving a multiplier, and Jump giving another multiplier on top of it.
Just stack it all up, yeah.
Yeah. And plus the multiplier from all the bonuses that we got from the flag set. You would have been jumping for quad 9s probably.
Yeah, probably.
So I know that most of the runners waited until towards the very end to go for Kefka and Arsh. For you, Turdsman, I know that you had, once you got Celeste from the Floating Continent a bit later than most of the other runners, went, my choices are Magitech 3 or Opera House Disruption or Kefka and Arsh. I'm going to do the one that I could peek.
Yeah, I kind of, like, it... I'm not quite at the point where I'm like really enacting, strategies on the fly with stuff like that. I end up kind of just going by vibes, and I just felt like Kefka at Narsh seems like the kind of seed where it would have been a good idea to do Kefka at Narsh early, actually.
Yeah. I find that, most runners usually put off Kefka at Narsh until they have 5 party members, but as a Yeti hater, if I have Yeti in my party, it's fine for me to put him on the bench and continue on and give the rest of my party all the XP anyway. So to me, Kefka at Narsh seeds become better when you have Yeti in the party, but I could understand also not wanting to do that with all of the stuff we had open to us, right?
Well, at the beginning, like it was another one of those seeds where it seemed like, oh, this is the obvious thing to do. One that I messed up. I keep thinking that Mount Zozo is a free check, so I didn't expect to see a Magicite there. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gone. But there were no characters. The only character, I guess, other than if you did Kefka at Narsh early and got Sabin, the only character at the beginning was Shadow in Burning House, I think, right?
Right. Which a lot of runners did relatively early because you get a lot of XP there. I know a few runners picked up some early Espers before doing that, so that was sort of the shtick. And we're welcomed in again by another one of our runners. Nobody War. GG's, and sorry on that triple kill.
Who knows? Who knows what happened there?
Yeah, so you were actually the first runner into Kefka's Tower. You went into KT at around like 52.5 minutes, whereas everybody else was at least 10 to 12 minutes behind. However, the struggles with the dragon and the struggles with just the party composition.
Yeah, party formation. I could feel it. As soon as I sat there like 2 minutes into that tentacles fight, I knew it was over.
So yeah, you guys, Jexy and Turdsman, skipped out on tentacles at Inferno. which is a disaster.
You know what?
That's all right.
And that's the thing. Somebody got the skip, right? Tell me somebody got the skip.
Well,
Yes.
Everybody ended up with the skip because you needed
Yeah,
12 bosses.
I was gonna do floating continent for the bosses.
Yeah.
I had like routed those bosses in as soon as I found Shadow, and never ended up doing it. Never ended up pulling the trigger on it.
Oh, be
And
happy.
it kind of probably bit me on this one, not doing it.
There was a Magimaster and a Doom up there, so it was.
Yeah, thank you for that. I didn't want to see that.
Yeah, so Drinks Glue actually went to Floating Continent very early, and I'm like, oh, I really like this play. And
Right, that's a good play.
And he learned Berserk on one of his characters. He just couldn't keep that character alive, and ran out of Phoenix Downs, ran out of MP, and that's just an awful feeling.
Yeah,
for that fight.
MP was a killer of this game too, for me at least.
I got lucky firing off the Berserk on Magi Master with mine because Strago was down real low. Then I got his health back up with using Drain.
Yeah,
Of all things.
Yep.
I'm gonna say this, and probably nobody went to the Coliseum, right? I was gonna gentleman's bet beforehand that we all go to the Coliseum at 30
totally
minutes just to see what happens.
No,
But,
there was some good stuff in there. There was Ragnarok.
Oh,
in
I'm
there.
sure.
There was, so yeah, Jax got it early. Turdsman tried to get it 2 different times before finally getting it.
Well, yeah, there was
Pearl is
peace
a
rings
tough
early
spell.
too, so it's like, yeah, I really debated about it, like, you know what I mean, like 15 minutes
when
in.
you have peace rings,
Should I do it?
It's easier to make that call when you have
I know.
a status mitigating item. So for you,
Plus,
Nobody War, you
30
actually
bigger.
yeah. So for you, Nobody War, you actually went to Kefka at Narsh before everybody else and was the only runner that got.
Well, I mean, it's
Sabin
as
their 5th character instead of their 6th character. So
right, yeah. I mean, you obviously saw like I played out all the checks up until that point, and I knew that's where it was. So that's where I'm going.
Floating Continent. Right?
Yeah, and I wasn't going there because I should have pulled the trigger before that if I was going to go there. Basically, what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
It's just like I knew like 4 checks or 3 or 4 checks before that. It was as soon as I got Shadow. Before I did Dream, basically, it was either one or the other, and I picked Dream because Dream's the right play in that decision, I think.
Yeah, because you also were lacking on. You had a lot of Espers.
I needed Espers. I needed something else. The Fire 3 wasn't going to cut it forever, and obviously it didn't.
Yep. So, yeah, I think so. What you probably should have done in this was to overload your party. And you had 9 bosses when you entered Kefka's tower. So what you probably should have done was load up the one party, go through the middle to get to 12 bosses, and then warp back in at the skip to do the other 2. I think that would have put you so far ahead, right? Because the problem was definitely definitely the party composition amongst the bosses that were there. So and being in the menu for years.
Word.
You also got really unlucky with the boss rolls because you had put like equipment on your characters that the bosses absorbed. Like you were like, well, let's put this pearl sword onto Sabin. Oh wait, let's put this other weapon.
I was too focused on one thing. What it was. I knew somebody out of everybody out of one of those 3 could do something. Somebody do it.
Yep. That's how it goes when you're trying to be like, what is happening here? I don't know what's going on. I need an adult. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
This is why you don't let me roll seeds.
No, that was a horrific.
No, this was great. This was fantastic.
Yeah, I like this one quite a bit, actually.
Yeah,
this
was amazing.
The thing is, with the no free progression flag, you kind of know that you're going to get your progression if you do your checks, right? And then the characters that we got, right, there weren't really any free progression checks. So we were getting stuff. There wasn't any to start with.
One of the flags, no free progression. I totally missed that.
Yes. So that's why.
I should have picked up those freebies.
There wasn't. I didn't find a whole lot. I found a lot of stuff to sell to then buy, Minervas and ribbons and such. But
yeah, it was a gem box, I think, at Gal Manor.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the hell was in the Figaro basement.
Glad I skipped.
I
the
never
gem
went
box.
there.
I don't remember if drinks.
Oh, it was a red cap.
Yeah, so it was utter trash, gutter tier garbage.
Not great.
The red cap I would have put to use.
Yeah,
Is
but
that-
I'd rather save the 45 seconds.
Honestly,
it takes
yeah,
to
at
go
that point,
down
like,
there.
I put it on somebody, but I was really hoping for a Genji glove or like another weapon or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't until, we got Sabin, and even then it's just collapsing house, and nobody went and picked up Mog at the first check, so that was his easy go mode there,
I was happy to find Chronicle.
I had some visions before this one started, and I'm like, oh, old man's gonna be here. I had a feeling, and I'm like, you gotta rush him if he's in the group. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Well,
Old man was an MVP for me.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I know that Jex Rock was wishing for Rage at the start of the seed, but Dance is a pretty close second for
it's
not
kind of
being
the
able to
same.
control your character, right?
Yeah, Dance
It was
did
a
its
good
thing.
dance too.
Both the dances that he started with were good.
Yeah, that's the desert one was all attacks and
Yeah,
all like the same
double-
element.
Right.
I mean, there was
Uh,
Surge in there, and then the
right.
other one I forget, but it was also like fully
had
offense.
Cockatrice and
El Nino.
yeah, Cockatrice, El Nino, and something else.
There was that Wild Bear, because I remember somebody was fighting Narapa, and then Wild Bear
Somebody
came out.
100% this. I guarantee Edgar has rage.
We'll have to go back and continue to play the seed on to figure if that's correct.
I do kind of want to see what's in Opera House.
Yeah, nobody went to Opera House. We had opportunities. Get it?
Wow, we're
opportunities. Anyway,
You guys finding
Very
all the
good.
characters without me.
So nobody wore. Any other final thoughts before we get the heck out of here?
No, I'm great. You guys, thank you very much. Schwans, Jeb, Tersman.
Yep, GG's.
Good times.
Yeah, GG's.
GG's.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, this was a pretty gnarly race where I think when the Kefka fight started, there was like maybe a minute and 30-second difference between all four of you. So it's really fun to watch at the end for sure.
Yeah, as soon as I saw
And
the
I
gun come
started
in,
it
I'm like,
last.
I goofed this up where I knew I goofed it up.
Yep. Well, we could watch
Good
it back
job, guys.
on YouTube with 1,000 subscribers. There you go. Excellent plug.
Yeah.
Turdsman, any other final thoughts before we get you out of here?
Nope. Nothing for me. Thanks for putting this on tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for showing up and for racing. Can't have the streams without the racers. So thank you again for volunteering. And Jexvarok, you got anything else you want to add?
Absolutely. Anybody here that is new to Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide and would like to learn this wonderful randomizer, come join us at ff6worldscollide.com. There's a link to our Discord.
Are we
We'd
still
love to
doing the
teach you.
WWWs? Like, do we not have to do that anymore? All right, fair enough.
There's a whole home movies episode about this.
Yeah, so anybody that's interested in joining our Discord community, we got a great community, willing to teach you this stuff. I will race anyone with just about any kind of flag set.
He's a madman.
Yes, and this is a very highly customizable randomizer. Also give our Restream team, the Schwants here, and also our fellow racers a follow, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you around. GG's, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you for organizing the race as well, Jexvarok. Appreciate you putting out the feelers there. Thank you to all the runners for running, including Drinks Glue, who couldn't be with us because of some microphone issues. And yeah, that's going to do it for us here at Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. We will be back on another day. So catch you all later. Thanks, and bye-bye now.